Please stand by for the broadcast of a message by His Excellency the Governor-General of India. The message in English will be followed by a Hindustani translation. This is All India Radio Delhi, radiating on all transmitters. His Excellency Rear Admiral the Earl Mountbatten of Burma, Governor-General of India, will now broadcast a farewell message. His Excellency the Governor-General.
When I was first asked to interrupt my naval career to become the last Viceroy of India, I must confess that I viewed the prospect with considerable trepidation. After serving in Southeast Asia from 1943 to 1946, during all of which time I had a rear headquarters in Delhi, I felt that I could, to some extent, appreciate the complexity of the situation which would confront the Viceroy on whom the task of transferring power would fall. But when I arrived out in India and was able to see the problem for myself at close quarters, it appeared to present even more difficulties than I had supposed. There was one bright feature, however, in the general gloom, and it was perhaps the most important feature that one could have wished for. This was the determination of all those with whom I had to deal, whether they were leaders in the political field or in any other walk of life, that a realistic solution could and must be found. And from the moment that I arrived, difficulties which had seemed insurmountable began to melt in the atmosphere of mutual trust and goodwill, with which those leaders combined to help me in my task. I can never say with what emotion I received the invitation, which was generously ratified by the Constituent Assembly as its first act during the midnight meeting of the 14th-15th of August, to be the first constitutional Governor-General of Free India during the interim period. I gladly agreed to stay on until the 31st of March 1948, the date specifically mentioned in the Indian Independence Act as the end of the interim period. And later, I was deeply honored by the invitation to extend this time until June. It has been difficult to decide at what juncture it would be in India's best interests that an Indian should be appointed in my place. But I hope that time will show that I have stayed long enough to be useful, but not too long so as to deprive India of the right which her freedom has conferred on her to choose one of her own people to be the head of the state. It is a particular pleasure to me that the choice should fall on my friend Rajaji, for no one is better qualified to take over the post. It has been an unforgettable experience for myself and my family to have been privileged to be in India during these past historic 15 months. India has a great history behind her, and she has a great history ahead of her. She has many problems, grave problems, such as would be bound to face any nation suddenly achieving freedom, but magnified in her case by the fact that this freedom has been attained at a time of unparalleled worldwide difficulties, and in a country that contains nearly 1/6 of the human race. But I know that she will solve these problems, and that her difficulties will be surmounted. India is destined to fill a high place in the world, and to play a high part in the world's affairs. India is potentially as rich a country as any in the world, quite apart from the wealth within the ground itself, such as coal, iron ore, manganese, and all the other valuable minerals, quite apart from the immense possibility of further prosperity from hydroelectric power and irrigation schemes. There remains the greatest source of wealth that any country can have, the hundreds of millions of its ordinary people. For with them rest not only the age-long traditions of manual labor, but the inheritance of the new technical age and of the ever-increasing skill which further training will provide. Inventive genius, which is latent in the Indian people, can now be harnessed as never before for the benefit and prosperity of themselves and of the whole world. Clearly, the spread of universal education and the advance of social service and conscience are essential if these creative forces are to be fully realized. These things will come about, but for all that, India's greatest asset will, I am sure, always lie in the character of her people. I myself saw the most stupendous crowds in my life in India, on Independence Day, at Gandhiji's funeral, at the Mela at Allahabad, on other historic occasions. The good nature and friendliness of these vast masses were unforgettable. I realized then that I was seeing before me the raw material of India's future greatness. Your draft constitution takes its place among the great documents of liberty and human rights. Be worthy of it. Goethe wrote that only he is worthy of true freedom who is prepared to establish it in himself in his everyday life. It is not the fact that high ideals are written into your constitution that will help you, but the stern resolve with which you yourselves determine to suppress all that could militate against these ideals being put into practice. I would like to end this talk on a personal note. During our 15 months in India, my wife and I have visited every single province and the majority of the major states. And wherever we have gone, we have been received with universal friendliness and kindness. My wife, who has been so closely associated with welfare work, particularly among refugees and abducted women, has had an even greater opportunity of meeting the people than I have had myself. And I know how deeply she has appreciated the help and cooperation given to her by all officials and the way that she has been received by all the people with whom she has come in contact. Wherever we may go in the future, both of us will remember with a sense of pride and of real humility the wonderful kindness and friendship we have received on all sides. We shall continue to love India and to take the deepest personal interest in her future welfare.